Really? Oh, there we go. I have no idea what was going on. I had to hard reset it. So anyway, sorry guys, our audio wasn't working, even though nothing changed. So anyway, welcome to the What's Up Webcast. My name is Kevin Lagore. I am the host of the What's Up Webcast. We do this here at Skywatcher on YouTube every Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific, right here at the Skywatcher USA YouTube channel. We cover everything from what's up in the nighttime sky to equipment to helpful tips and tricks. And of course, at the end of the month, we have a special guest to talk about their specialty in the field of astronomy. So today is going to be a little different. We've done these episodes before. This is going to be a Q&A session. So if you guys have questions, this would be the time to do it. Today we're kind of doing a Q&A session on the eclipse. Now, the eclipse is about 16 days from now on April 8th. And it is crunch time. So right now, I hope a lot of you already have your plans figured out. I hope you have your equipment figured out. I know a lot of the equipment that Skywatcher is getting ready to send out for the Texas Star Party Eclipse event, which we'll be attending, is getting ready to leave next week. So we here at Skywatcher are getting very excited about that. But it's getting to that crunch time where everything has to be ready to go at this point. If you don't have filters right now, I know Agena Astro has a bunch because we just bought a few filters from them. There's some other companies that I'm sure that have white light front mounted filters, but we are getting to a point now where you better start sourcing it if you don't already have it. And don't be one of those people, if you get someone on the phone and they say they don't have it, don't get upset at them because you waited till the last minute. So let's see, there's a question right here. Hi Skywatcher, I had an issue with a Starventure GTI last year where the RA axis wouldn't lock, sent it in for warranty repair and got it fixed. Happened again, no response for 4 days. Our tech guy has been buried with Eclipse stuff, and he was out sick yesterday. So try again. Alex is back today, so try again, and we should be able to get that taken care of. It sounds like it may need to be either replaced or repaired again, so I'm sorry that you're having those issues, but we'll see what we can do right now. But please reach out to support@skywatchusa.com again. So next question. If using a LUNT, would I be able to image Bailey's beads? No. So let's talk about filters really quick. There are a couple types of filters that are out and available for observing the sun. I have one of each on right below my feet. So I have a Daystar down here. I have some LUNT stuff. I have an old Tucson Coronado, which are my favorites. I always like the look of the old school Coronados. I've got a Herschel wedge, calcium, and some white light filters. Now, when we're shooting Bailey's beads and things like that, you are in a point where you no longer have the filter installed in the front. And a narrowband filter like a LUNT or a Coronado or a Daystar will block too much light. So you're going to need a front-mounted white light filter, but that will be, you'll have to take that filter off once you are in the path of totality and you're using that solar eclipse timer, which we had Gordon, the creator of that, on a couple weeks ago. It will tell you to remove the filter at that point. So, but yeah, no, the LUNT won't work. No narrowband filters on this one. Still no info on why I haven't received the December patch Totem. We just went through a ton of the backlogs for Totem, and everybody's patches have now shipped, and we went back for anybody who hasn't received their patch from last year. You are most likely going to be getting multiple patches, but I think we have cleared everyone now at this point. So sorry for the delay on all of that. But yes, we've finally caught up with everything, and the new patches arrived for Totem this year, so they are also coming. So a lot of you are going to be getting probably a couple. Some of you are going to get a handful of patches for the last 2 months and make up for whatever reason you didn't receive the ones from last year. So really quick, This came up during a previous episode when we were talking solar filters, but these right here, this is a threaded Nisi. This is a Nisi one, ND 100,000 filter. This is great for photographing the sun in white light. Now, these filters are only for photographing or photography. I'm sorry. They are not made for visual use. They do not block enough light for them to be made for visual use. So these ND 100,000s that you can get from various companies, the Nisi one I've had for a little while. It's a very nice filter. It's very well made. It's got some nice knurled grips on it, but I like these a lot. This is a 77 millimeter. Now, the problem with these front-mounted filters, and it doesn't matter who makes them. I have another one. Oh, right here. You can get these really cheap ones, these black polymer ones that are mounted in the cells as well. These are really cost-effective, but I like the Nisi ND 100,000s. But the problem with these filters is they are threaded. So like most camera filters, I'm sure you can see there's some threads right here that threads into your camera lens. Now, when you're in totality or in the path of totality, when it gets down to the diamond ring or Bailey's beads, you need to be able to remove the filter very quickly. And these filters right here, as easy as it is to thread on and off, those threads are thin and small, and you can cross thread very, very quickly on that. And it just becomes a major pain when you just don't have time to be messing with something like that. So someone had recommended a while ago these magnetic mounting rings. So I had to go find one myself because I wanted to try one of these. Now, these are this particular one is made by Case, Kase, and it's a magnetic adapter ring. So I have, here's my 100 to 400, and you can't really see it, but it's just a little tiny adapter ring. It looks like a filter, but this one's really thin. There's a part that threads on. This is a 77. They come in different sizes. Now the other part of that threads on there, and then when you're ready, you just pop them on, and there you go. Magnetic filter adapters, as Max in the chat had talked about. This is my first magnetic adapter. I may have to get one for every lens I've got because threading filters is a pain, but this is really nice and just makes it quick and easy. So if you have one of these thread-on camera filters, the filter themselves is fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with these filters. But the threading on and off is going to get old really quickly. So those magnetic filter adapters, I just got one, and I can full-heartedly say they're worth the small investment. Let's see. How does the EQ... Oh, this is a CQ. How does the CQ 350 Pro handles a Stellar View 180 telescope for astrophotography? So I have a Stellar View 180. It's big. It is a lot bigger than an Esprit 150 is. So I do not use the CQ 350 for the 180. I use an EQ8R, and that mount holds it just fine. A friend of mine uses a Paramount MX Plus. A CQ 350, I would say, is probably the bare minimum mount I would trust to hold a 7-inch f7 refractor. You could do it for imaging. It would probably work fine, but the breeze, if you ever get some wind, you'll probably notice it because of that long moment arm. But for just general use, a CQ 350 would probably do okay with that. It's on the weight. It's within its payload limit. But it's probably on the larger size, particularly because of the length of the tube. It is a big telescope. I think I've got a photo of it. I don't know if this is really going to do anybody justice here. Now, I would also say this to be true about the ASCAR 185 that's out. It's just a big telescope. So, here's the Stellar View 180 at a private event that I was doing. One thing about these refractors is because of how long they are, you're going to need some clearance. Now, the CQ350 tripod has a large stance, so the legs spread quite far, so you can run into them. Now, I have an EQ8 and I have an old software bisque pyramid tripod. They don't make them anymore, even though they're fantastic. And I have 12 inches of extension. You can see right here. Those are extenders to raise the head up from the tripod. I could probably benefit from a third one, to be honest, because these telescopes are big. But a CQ350 will hold a 180. You could image with it. Like I said, it'd probably be the smallest mount I would recommend for such a telescope. But if you could go to a bigger mount, I would recommend it. So hopefully that helps. Let's see. When imaging the corona during totality with a 92 millimeter refractor, would it be better to use a camera with a 14 frame per second 12-bit ADC or a camera with an 8 frame per second 14-bit ADC? That's a really good question. I wish I had Simon on. We almost had Simon come back today, but I figured that we could handle it. I don't know. Oh, I wasn't sharing the screen. I'm sorry. Hold on just a second. I'm so used to just doing stuff. I just talked about the 180 and I didn't even have it up on the screen there. I'm sorry, guys. Hold on. We're going to backtrack here. Let me transition the frame. Here we go. So this is the Stellar View 180 setup. You can see I've got the pyramid tripod. There's the two extenders right there. The EQ8R head and then the 180. It does take about two 22-pound counterweights to balance it. That's just for visual. You probably need about 3 to balance an imaging system. But these telescopes are big. Oh, there we go. That's a little bit better. These are very large refractors. And I wouldn't be surprised if we saw more affordable 8-inch refractors enter the market just because the 180s have come out. But these kinds of telescopes do not scale well. They're beautiful, but they don't scale well. So even if they are affordable, the mount you're going to need is not. So for a 180, you can still get by with like a CQ350. An EQ8, if you're getting something from Skywatcher, would be my personal choice just because you want all the rigidity you can get. But a CQ350 would do okay. So anyway, sorry about that, guys. Here's all the other outreach stuff that we have in the Focus lineup. So if you ever come to one of our events, some of this will be floating around. So, all right, let me transition back to me. I'm sorry. Okay. The 14 frames per... So regarding whether you should use a 14 frame per second 12-bit camera or an 8 frame per second 14-bit camera really comes down to what you're trying to do. At the moment, it depends on what you want to do. So if you're doing totality, those are going to be short exposures and speed isn't really a big thing. So I would want more dynamic. So I'd probably pick a 14-bit over 16-bit would be ideal, but 14-bit would be better than 12. But if you are just going for speed to stack a bunch of images during the partial phases, I think the 8 frames would be okay. Because again, these are just short little things. I would probably choose the 14-bit camera over the 12-bit, but that would be my personal choice. Let's see. Got a TAC FS60. Very nice. With 56.2 millimeter back focus. How on earth do I get 0.2 millimeters? I need 52 to 54 adapter. Not much space for anything. So your back focus doesn't need to be dead on, especially with a TAC FS60. I think those are like f5.9. You have about a millimeter or two to work with, maybe a little bit more at f6. It doesn't have to be dead on to be nice. So you don't have to be absolutely exact. So if you're at 56 millimeters or even 55, you're probably fine. Don't worry about the 0.2 millimeter. You could probably find some ultra thin spacer. I've gotten spacers from Star Arizona that are 3D printed. I don't even know how small those spacers are. 0.2 is ridiculous. So don't worry about it. If it's a really big deal, then you could get like a Star Arizona variable spacer, which you can adjust to absolute perfection. And that's what I use for testing, actually, is the variable spacers, because a lot of times back focus changes and I can just adjust the spacing with those. But if it's only 0.2 millimeters, don't even bother. You're going to drive yourself crazy trying to get that nailed down, and it's not going to really benefit your image. You're well within the bounds of what you're trying to do. So don't drive yourself crazy. Can you send a link to the magnetic filter adapters? Let me find them, because the one I have here, the case one, is, I don't think it's available. I think they're sold. Case magnetic adapter ring. Oh, I don't want the filters. I want the adapter ring. Case magnetic adapter rings. There's a few of them on here. This is the one that just says prime. These are 82s, but you can do some digging to find others. Dang it, hold on. Copping all the wrong stuff. There we go. I'll just pop this in the chat. This is the one. And of course it won't let me because it's such a long link for whatever reason. So here, I'll just show you guys. This is what I have. This is the Case, K-A-S-E, Wolverine Magnetic Adapter Kit. This is an 82. Mine are 77, so you'll have to source whatever you're going to need. B&H Photo probably has something too. Oh, there's a link in the chat. There's a lot of third-party ones out there. Just find what works for you, and that's all you really are going to need at that point. Sorry, that's better. Bear with me. I need to adjust some things back here. That's better. There we go. Yeah, so you can get them from B&H. You can get them from Amazon. Just find whoever has them and get the adapter for the lens that you need. So if it's 82 millimeter, get 82s. If it's 77, get 77. Whatever works. Let's see. Did that one. How do you do a Meridian flip on the Skywatch Star Venture GTI and how to force it? So this is becoming a topic lately for anybody using equatorial mounts, that the eclipse on April 8th for many people is going to be right about on the meridian. So what I would recommend you do, because I'm going to have to do the same thing, and if you're going to be out at the Texas Star Party event, you'll see the rigs in about 2 weeks that we're bringing, but most of them are equatorial because we're putting a lot of weight on them. So I'm going to end up forcing the meridian flips beforehand, probably 10 minutes beforehand. I'm using EQ8Rs, and those can go about a little over 5 degrees, maybe a little bit more past the meridians. So I'm going to just by hand flip it. You could force a meridian flip, but if the sun's on the meridian, you can just say go and it should flip if in the software it shows the meridian, or you can just flip the meridian on your own and do it that way. So there's not really a way to force a meridian flip if the object hasn't passed the meridian. So but if it's within a little bit, then the mounts you'll just have to say go to the sun and it will flip and go there, and you'll center it up, and that's how you do it. So okay, so the FS60 you're running at f4.2. You should still be within a millimeter or so of the back focus. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. Back focus is critical, but there is a window of how accurate you have to be, and if you're only 0.2 millimeters off, you don't even worry about it. Even at f4.2, you're going to drive yourself nuts. Mercury is visible in the evening sky this week. Saw it. Oh, cool. I'm glad you were able to get out and see it. Now, there's a couple, if you've got other questions, throw them in the chat. But if you need some filters, cheap ones, there's these little Daystar. Sorry, my kids got a hold of it. You can see their fingerprints everywhere. These little Daystar, I like to call them origami filters, are awesome little filters. They arrive flat in a little mailer, and you can fold them up and put them on your telescope if it's small enough. They make 3 sizes, so get whatever you want. I'm not sure if they still have them, but you can check. These work really well. I like these a lot. Again, the ND 100,000s work well. If you've got camera lenses, just make sure it's a front mounted one. And I would recommend these magnetic adapters, or you can get the glass or whatever filter you feel like. For photographing the diamond ring and Bailey's beads, is it better to use AEB? Should I use high speed continuous shots? What would be the time gap between the diamond ring and Bailey's beads? I don't know what AEB stands for. I'm sure it's really obvious. I'm assuming it's a type of bracketing. I did bracketing in 2017. Bracketing is probably what saved my life in 2017, because I was able to just pound away because I got it within the window. I looked up Fred Espinek's website and kind of figured out what f-stop I'm going to be imaging with. I was on a telescope, so I just picked f5.5, went to Fred Espinek's website and figured out what exposures were best, and then I had it bracket up from there. So auto exposure bracketing. Yeah, so I would do bracketing. It helps you. You're going to shoot a lot of pictures, so make sure you've got memory cards. I got them this morning. I ordered 3 128 gig SD cards. You can get bigger ones too, like 256. So these little SanDisk 128s, they're like $28, and they write 200 megabit per second. So for like $80 or so, you can get 3 of these things, and you'll be ready to go. So make sure you've got charged batteries and really solid SD or memory cards to do that. But you only have a few seconds between the diamond ring and Bailey's beads. So that would be a really good question if you really want to know the nitty gritty. Look up MrEclipse.com. That's Fred Espinek's website. And we'll have Fred on next week. He's going to be like the wrap up for everything Eclipse related. And he can give you the down low on a lot of that. But he has that all documented. I guess I could actually look it up because we're right here, and that's what the whole episode's about. MrEclipse.com. Hold on. I get his website wrong. There we go. So here we go. So yeah, here's, let's see, how to photograph the total solar eclipse. There's focal lengths, picking your image size, sturdy tripod. Here you go, exposure guide. See, Bailey's beads is right there. And you can just figure out what your f-stop's going to be. But this is what I used in 2017, and it worked out really well. But yeah, that auto bracketing was a big help. So always recommend bracketing for the eclipses. The faster your camera, the better. I use the 7D Mark II, which is pounded through it. I'm actually thinking of renting a faster camera like an R3 or something crazy just to pound away even quicker. So, but yeah, you have very limited time to get Bailey's beads. So make sure you're using that solar eclipse timer app. Make sure you're bracketing, and make sure you've actually looked at MrEclipse.com, which is in the chat there, and match up what your f-stop is, and then work around those exposure times. I was shooting at 760 millimeter in 2017. Is it worth going back to 400 to avoid using a 2x and save 2 stops? I wouldn't even deal with a tele extender for eclipses. It's not, you don't need that tight of a frame. 760 millimeters is a bit tight, as we've talked about before. You can do it, but it's a little bit tight. So I would back off to I'm going to shoot at 550 millimeters because I'm using a telescope, so I can't change that. 400 would be fine and would give you more of the corona. I'm planning to do video at 400 millimeter just to try it. But yeah, so I would not use any tele extenders. I'm also not a big fan of 2x tele extenders. They just kind of degrade everything. 1.4s are okay. But if you don't have one, just go back to 400 millimeters. Or if you have one of these super zooms, like these 150 to 600 zooms, just use that. Don't add anything else to the train. Just do 150 to 600. I'd probably set it you could go to 600 if you've got full frame. But if you're cropped, you probably want to back it off a bit to 400 or 500 millimeters. But that's what I would recommend. Now, you can do some interesting stuff, just moving forward until another question comes in. You can, if you do have the narrow band filters, let's see. Let's grab the Lunt 40 I've got here. So this is a Lunt 40 double stack. You can see the two little etalons right here. You don't want to, this is going to be worthless during totality, but the before and after phases, these little solar scopes are going to be fun, and you could actually get some cool images of the sun in partial phases. You could hook cameras up to these narrowband telescopes and get some really interesting shots of the sun in narrowband during the partial phase. Or if you're not going to be in the path of totality, then these little telescopes like the Lunt, any of the Lunts are fine. I don't have any of the new Coronados, but the old Coronados, here's a 60, a Coronado 60 etalon filter set there. Those all work really well. This would be probably my choice of doing hydrogen. You could do calcium if you wanted to. But all of that would be great for the partial phases, or if you will not be in totality and you just want to go out there and view the eclipse and you have something like this, these work just fine. Just make sure they're set up correctly and they're on the appropriate scope and you know what you're doing with it. Come on, camera. Everything's giving me grief this morning. It knows it's Friday. There we go. Not sure why that took so long. How big of a deal are sensors tilt for stars at 255 millimeters? Sensor tilt can be seen. It all comes down to the pixel size. So if the camera has the resolution to get down that far, it's going to see it. 255 millimeters is probably pretty forgiving, especially because a 183 sensor is really small in comparison to these larger. Most of the optics that are out there today, they can handle crop and full frame sensors without much of an issue. So a 183 is a pretty small camera sensor. So there's a good chance that even if there is some sensor tilt, at 255 millimeters, you probably won't see too much of it, but it would probably be worth checking. Go out in the backyard and just put it on a star field and see how it looks. And see if you see the sensor tilt. And if you have to treat sensor tilt, that's kind of a pain, but like these ZWO cameras and some other cameras, I have seen sensor tilt on them. And you can tune that out with the tilt plate, but it's a little bit of a process. But a lot of cameras nowadays have tilt plates where you can basically collimate the front flange to your system, especially if the sensor is tilted. But a lot of these more cost-effective cameras, I have seen have tilt. It's just kind of part of that process. So, but a 183 shouldn't be too bad because it is smaller and you're not actually achieving the full image circle. You'd see probably more issues as you get further out from the center of the lens. So hopefully that helps right there. Any other questions, guys? It's kind of quiet there. So we did talk about hydrogen alpha a little bit. You can do that, especially if you're in the partial phases. You can, if you really, where'd it go? If you really want to. Sorry, I got too much stuff down here. And everything's kind of packed in its cases. if you're in partial phases or the partial eclipse, the Herschel wedge is my particular favorite white light filter. This is a Starfield, so thanks to our buddy Steve Malia up at Starfield. Herschel wedges are my favorite white light filter. It gives you the cleanest image. And if you're going to be in partial phases, or you will not be path of totality, this would be my white light filter of choice. These work up to refractors of 6-inch in aperture or smaller. Light comes down, hits the prism inside. You can see that prism is uncoated. Most of the light passes through to the heat sink, which is dissipated by the vents back here, and then the rest goes through a polarizer and up here. But Starfield makes their own with 1.25" available as well, and then Lunt, of course, has one. Honestly, at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if these aren't even available right now, but the Herschel wedge are my favorite white light filter. If you're going to just be doing partial phases, these work really, really well. But if you're going to be in totality, you need to be able to be focused and ready to go before totality. So that's why I just like using a front filter like glass or film. This usually would just ride on a secondary telescope, so just for viewing purposes. Any eyepiece recommendation for visual experience of the eclipse? Simpler the better. Honestly, you don't need anything fancy for eclipses or even viewing the sun at all. I like to use teleview plossels. Those are my personal favorite. I think they are the best baffled eyepiece out there for solar. 35, 25. If you have day stars, I have a 55 plossel for my day star, which is down here. Simpler the better, though. So just plossels. You don't need big fancy eyepieces to run solar anything. And all the other companies would probably say the same thing who make solar filters. It just needs to be a simple eyepiece. Too many lenses, and it just causes more scattering because there's a lot of light we're dealing with. Or we're dealing with a particular band of light like hydrogen. But again, just a basic plossel works fine. But if you want a really nice one, I think the best ones are the teleview plossels. Let's see. Yeah, the Botter wedge is really nice. I haven't had a chance to use one lately, but the Botter wedge is more modular, and it allows you to kind of customize it for what you want to do. So the Botter wedge is very nice. The Botter Cool wedge is what that is. They're a little expensive because of their ability to be very adaptable. So I just have the Starfield one because I use it primarily for visual. I used the Star Adventure mount for 2017 using a Solar Quest this time. Yes, the Solar Quest is a great mount. They are in stock. I know High Point has some in stock. We've got them on, I think, our website. You have to dig around and see who's got what. But a Solar Quest mount is a really nice mount that doesn't have Meridian flip issues because it's Altaz. It holds about 11 pounds. And if you don't care about field rotation or all you're doing is just photographing totality, a Solar Quest mount would be the weapon of choice because no polar alignment, no Meridian flip problems, and it holds what you need it. Question: where on the histogram would you want your peak when having the white light filter on during the partial phase? So this is something really easy to just go out and try right now. I don't know where it would land on the histogram, but you could go out today or this weekend and pop your filter on, because in the partial phases, it doesn't change even from full disk to eclipsed disk when it's a partial eclipse. So you can go out right now, put your filter on, and just adjust your exposures until you get what looks good to you. And if that looks good, write it down, document it somewhere. That's the same setting you would use at the eclipse as well for the partial phases. You could pay attention where it lies on the histogram if you want to know, but I just kind of adjust until things look good. Everything looks kind of well illuminated but not overexposed, and it looks sharp. And then if you really want to know where it is on the histogram, just go pull up histogram. But I never really pay much attention to the histogram itself. I just look that it's sharp, looks good, and it's not overexposed. But that's something you could easily go out and practice with right now, or even after this, of course, with the filter. We'll be calling you guys about an EQ mount, EQ8 mount. We have EQ8s, and they're on sale right now. We actually have a sale going on right now. So if you're interested in EQ8s, just because it's relevant, I believe they are on sale, EQ8s. Yeah, so we have EQ8 mounts in stock. So if you're looking for a mount, these are on sale till the end of the month. So you can save yourself nearly $1,000 or more on some of these. So if you're looking for a big mount, now would be the time to jump on it because we have inventory and they're available. So there you go. Let's see. Any telescope recommendations? Should I go with the Maxtoff, Schmidt, reflectors, or refractors? I always use refractors for the sun. Mirrors just complicate things. You get weird reflections. If you're not collimated, it's a problem because it bounces light all over the place. If all you have is a Cassegrain or a Newtonian, then that's fine. But I would honestly recommend us using refractors. I am only using refractors for the Eclipse personally. I don't know anybody right now personally that is using any kind of reflecting telescope for the Eclipse. You just don't need that kind of aperture either. So just a little refractor would be totally fine. And that's it. I have a bad leg on my AZ GTI tripod. The compression ring is seized on it. Can I buy a replacement leg somewhere? Email support@skywatcherusa.com. It would be, if it's still under warranty, we'll take care of it. If it's not, then we'll see what we can do. I will let you know that if you're trying to get parts before the Eclipse, that window probably is gone at this point. So if you're in need of a tripod or any part from us right now, there's a good chance you will not get it by the Eclipse. Just to preface that, because I don't want you to get an order in now and then be upset that it didn't arrive in time. Our team's trying to get a ton of stuff out the door for people that are getting stuff fixed. We have a ton of part requests for just little things, but even if it's something small, it takes time for our team to get that done and shipped out. And we've been rushing. If there's anybody who has stuff that needs repaired for the Eclipse, we're trying to get those out immediately. But at the same time, we're pretty much at that limit now to where if you want something now, there's just not enough time to get it to you, or it's really tight. So we can't promise you anymore that you get it on time. But if you're not in a rush to get it for the Eclipse, or if it'll handle it for the Eclipse, just reach out to us afterwards and we'll take care of it. As long as it's under warranty, or if you want to buy something, you can. Let's see. Received my new Lunt 50 yesterday and noticed a large dust bunny inside the pressure-tuned etalon near the center. Could this affect optimal performance if it's inside the etalon but not close to the focus? You might start to see it. I'd be really surprised if it was inside the etalon cavity. I would probably say it's on one of the collimation lenses, either the back or the front lens, but not inside the cavity. Now, that's not to say it isn't, but I know the people who put these things together, and they're really immaculate about making sure they are clean and ready to go, especially the etalons. And those etalon chambers are pressurized, so I'd be surprised if there was something in there, but that's not to say it's not. I haven't seen your scope. Maybe there is. I know they're trying to get stuff out. But you can clean some of that up in post-processing if you want, but it might be worth discussing with Lunt. I probably wouldn't even bother contacting Lunt right now if you don't absolutely have to. They are swamped just like Daystar, and I'm sure everyone else is. So if it's not going to be a detriment and it's something you can work with, I would just try to get through the Eclipse and then go get it corrected after that once things have calmed down. You might see it, though, because the etalon is still in the focus. Well, you might or might not. You want it. It's kind of in a weird spot. you might see it, but it might be an out of focus blob. So you might be lucky enough to where it's not affecting anything. To photograph the planets, how long of an exposure is needed? I've been wondering that too. Now, I've been playing around. So Comet 12P Pons Brooks is supposed to be somewhat visible during totality. Now, what magnitude? That's a whole nother thing. And you have to remember that if you have seen totality, it does get dark, but it's not like dark. It's like dusk. So there's still a fair amount of light. What exposure? I'm not exactly sure. The planets are easy because the planets are going to be naked eye, very bright. So a couple seconds will give you a really cool corona shot plus the planets. Now the comet, depending on how zoomed in you are, I would like to try and doing it with the 1635 lens I've got, because I've figured you have to be wide to catch the whole string of planets and the sun and everything. But probably a couple seconds is what you're going to have to do to get a nice shot of that. But the comet's going to be a question. What I would actually do if the comet is on your goal, and it is definitely one of mine, my plan is to kind of go into Sky Safari on that Saturday or Sunday before the eclipse. So this would be the 7th or the 6th of April. Go into Sky Safari or some app and collect or go in, look for the comet and find out what its magnitude is at the time and see what you're dealing with. So if it's under magnitude 7, it's not naked eye visible. And that's magnitude 7 is visible in a dark sky site. You have to remember there's a lot of light here. So it'll be interesting if we can see it or not. I'll be really curious to see who's trying to get it and who's able to get a shot of it. But it's going to be a challenge. If I do daytime polar alignment, what's the longest exposure time you would risk, considering time is money? Depends on the focal length, really. You could probably get by with a couple seconds at that point, but it depends on the focal length. I would really try to get that as dialed in as possible. I know some of the mounts that we're going to be using, we're going to set up a couple nights before, get them dialed in. Won't be leaving the telescopes on them because they're pricey. But I will be keep getting the mounts polar. If you have the ability to go out the night before and polar align, or get up early and just sit out there, it's worth the time and the effort to go out before dawn while Polaris is still visible and just polar align it. Even if you're just using the polar scope to get it close, that's better than nothing. So, but you should be able to get with a couple seconds. Enough to get a decent shot of the eclipse should be okay. I recently purchased the Skywatcher Solar Quest. What power bank do you recommend powering the mount? None. I always use AA's. Now, here's the reason why. These mounts, much like our Star Adventures, when they are tracking, pull very little power. They only pull most of their power when they're slewing. Now, once a Solar Quest is on target, it doesn't pull a lot of power. And a lot of these little power banks have an auto shut off if they don't have enough amperage going out at a given time for an extended amount of time. And that's just to conserve the battery. Now, what I found with the Solar Quest is this happens too, because I've had Solar Quest just stop working because the battery turned off. So I would just recommend getting 8 AA's and packing them in there, and you're good. The AA's will run it. There won't be any auto shut off, and there's no guessing at that point. That's what I'm doing during the eclipse for the Solar Quests we're bringing. Just put AA's in there and don't question it, and use your power pack for something more larger that needs it. But I don't like using power banks on the Solar Quest. Not anything to do with the mount. It's just a lot of power banks don't have that ability to stay on. They shut off because there's not a lot of power coming out of it. So hopefully that helps there. Is it safe to use a Schmidt Newtonian? It's a 10-inch. Is there a low-cost option for a filter out there? You could use whatever telescope you want. Now, I'm assuming this is the old Meade 10-inch f4 Schmidt, which means you're at 1,000 millimeters, which is a lot of focal length for totality. I don't know if you are in totality or not. It all depends on the size of your sensor as well. But 1,000 millimeters is getting a little tight. But sure, you could use whatever telescope that you wanted. Low cost options, probably a Mylar film filter would be the lowest cost option. Now, can you find one? That's a whole nother question. Now, the unfortunate part right now is one of the companies I like working for, AstroZap, or working with, right up here, they have some stuff going on, and it doesn't look like they're shipping stuff at this point. So, but what you can do is you can go in here, go to solar filters, how to choose a solar filter. You want to measure the outer diameter of the front cell of your Schmidt-Newtonian or whatever telescope that you need. And then you can go into their list and find whatever filter you're going to need. So here's pre-made solar filters. Let's do Astro Solar Film. Sometimes they have it listed down here. Sometimes. But you want to find what would fit. Now, for something like that, it's probably about an 11-inch filter, maybe 12-inch wide. You want to find a filter that'll work with that. But I can tell you, Agena Astro had a ton of filters in stock the other day at that point. So, but, oh, it's for visual? Yeah, a Schmidt-Newtonian should be perfectly fine. If you're just doing visual, you should be able to get the whole field of view in there. Just make sure you have an eyepiece big enough. But if you don't have a filter, you could either do an off-axis filter where there's only a little part of the aperture, because you don't need all 10 inches. It's a lot. But you can go full aperture. Just, I would check Agena Astro if you need filters. They're the ones, just off the top of my head, I know they have filters. So start there. And if they don't have your size, start digging around and seeing what you can. But you're probably going to want to pay for rush shipping here soon. So. Unrelated, I've got an EvoStar 120 ED with a Teleview 2-inch dielectric diagonal, the Teleview 31 Nagler and Feather Touch focuser, but when testing daytime, notice orange tint around the outer 20% of the image. Yes, the 31 Nagler is known for, I think they call it the Ring of Fire. All of them do that. That's just how the 31 Nagler acts, especially in the daytime. It's blatantly obvious. I have no issue with it because I don't really use the 31 Nagler too much during the day. But what you're saying, it's all in the eyepiece there. It has nothing to do with the telescope. It's all the eyepiece. That's just how the 31 Nagler works. But again, you have to remember that this eyepiece, the 31, is really designed for night. It's not really designed for daytime. But it's still a fantastic eyepiece. It's one of my favorite eyepieces ever. The holy hand grenade is what it is. But yeah, the orange tint is, every 31 I've ever used has it. That's just how it works. And it's only visible at daytime or really bright objects. Let's see. My brother has goats. Should I sacrifice one of the gods for clear skies? Yes, absolutely. But yeah, don't hurt any animals if you don't have to. So, let's see what other questions are. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't share my screen again. I'm used to just having stuff up. So, really quick, while there's no questions and I'm sharing my screen anyway, if you like what you see here, please go ahead and like and subscribe our channel. If you want to support the channel more, you can go to skywatcher.threadless.com. We got some cool stuff there. We do have sales going on a lot of products till the end of the month. We also have limited edition silver anniversary Virtuoso GTIs. I think we are out, but there's another shipment coming in June. Some of our dealers have these in stock. These are only limited to 1,000 worldwide, so get them while you can. We will have this on display at NEAF, and we will have one out at the Texas Star Party event. We've got a little solar filter for it. So you can come check that out. They're actually really nice little telescopes. I've got mine right back here. Seymour Solar is very good. Those guys are great as well. So Spectrum filters and Seymour filters, AstroZap, Thousand Oaks, they're all great filters at that But yeah, so we have the Virtuoso GTI 25th anniversary. You can get that. I know some of you got it, so thank you very much. You can go to the Threadless store. All that's awesome. Thousand Oaks optical solar filter ND5 12-inch. Would that be okay? I don't want. Yeah, ND5 is a visual filter, so that would be perfectly fine. So the ones you do not want to use visually are ND 3.8, but it will say photographic on it only. ND5 is actually what you're looking for. So I don't know many companies that make ND 3.8 film filters anymore. I think you can get it from Botter, but I think you can only get it in their calcium filter combo kit they have. But Thousand Oaks and everybody else that I know of just sells the ND5. So that should be okay at that point. So hopefully you can get a filter for yourself sooner rather than later. But yeah. Now, again, if you're in the partial phases or you're not going to be in totality, you can use anything you like. You can use the hydrogen alpha filters. You can use calcium filters. If you are going to be at the Texas Star Party event, we will have... There's the calcium wedge. This is for the Lunt 152. This will be out there, so you can stop by and check out what calcium looks like. White light, hydrogen, all of them will be there. So, are there disadvantage of using reducer for solar? I'm using a Schmidt and full frame camera. Not. The more glass with the sun, the more reflections you can get. So you want to kind of keep it down if you can, but I do understand there's also the point where you just can't. You cannot reduce down any further. And so you might need to use a reducer. Now the reducer is going to reduce. It's going to speed that up. So don't be surprised if you're going to need the like an ND filter or polarizer to dim it down. But you can use all of that if you need to. But yeah, so you can use a reducer. It's not the end of the world, especially if that's what you have to do. But the less glass, the better with solar. So yeah. All right, guys. Well, unless you have some last minute questions, go ahead and throw it in the chat. Really appreciate you guys hanging out. Next week, we are going to have Fred Espenek on. He is the Mr. Eclipse. He is the master of eclipses. So if you need any last minute technical questions from the man himself, that is the episode to ask. And that will be our final episode about the eclipse. I'm sure you're all sick of hearing about the sun because we did basically a whole month on it. But and then our What's Up for the Month episode, which will actually air on April 5th, will be a pre-recorded episode because we will be at the Texas Star Party Eclipse event. So that will be a pre-recorded episode. Then we'll be back for like a week and then another pre-recorded episode because then we're off at NEAC and NEAF, and we're hoping to have some fun, cool stuff to announce there. We'll see what happens, but we've got some cool stuff hopefully coming this year that I think you guys will be really excited to see and hear about. So as soon as we can tell you about it, we will tell you about it. But they're not ready yet to tell you about. So we're still working on some stuff. But NEAF should be kind of cool. When am I getting fish in the fish tank? Probably after the eclipse. So any reason why Macs don't get any reducer for DSOs? Macs are really hard to make reducers for. So that's kind of the only issue there. They're just difficult to make a reducer for. There's spherical optics, and you have to really make it match to that particular telescope. So it's just not something you see a whole lot of. So unfortunately, but Macs are awesome telescopes. All right, everybody. I don't see any more questions. Thank you all for watching. Really appreciate it. If you are local to Phoenix, we'll be at the Grand Canyon University this evening with an astronomy event going on, so that should be cool. And then next week, I'll be at Paradise Valley Community College. You're welcome to stop by and say hi there. And then it's off to Texas for the Eclipse, so you can see us there. And then, of course, NEAF for all of our East Coast friends. So April's going to be really crazy and really busy. But yeah, stop by and say hi. I don't think, for those attending the TSP event, I don't think we're going to be on the main field. It's about half a mile away from where the lodging is. I think we'll be closer to the lodging area with our equipment, but we're bringing a ton of solar stuff just to represent. So stop by, say hi. But thanks for everybody for watching. I hope you have a great weekend. And yeah, we will see you guys next Friday. Please go ahead and subscribe, leave a like. Thanks very much. We'll see you guys on Friday. Have a good weekend. Take care and bye.